On today's show, the Cavs are going to be the top seed in the East. We know that. We don't know who their opponents are going to be in the first or second round. So I'm bringing in Spencer Davies. We are going to rank the potential playoff opponents for the Cavs on this edition of Locked On Cavs.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? My name is Danny Cunningham. You might know me from my time covering the Cavs at places like my Substack, The Inside Shot, Cleveland Magazine, 92.3 The Fan, and a number of other places along the way. You might know Spencer Davies, who's joining me today from Cleveland Cavaliers on SI, or a number of other stops that he has had in his illustrious media career covering the Cleveland Cavaliers. But first, before we get started, thank you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts. Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed as well. And if you're watching the show on YouTube, do me a favor. Hit that thumbs up button for me. Click subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. A proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode, of course, brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Spencer, the Cavs are going to be the 1 seed. They have a 5-game lead over the Boston Celtics as we record this. Boston plays on Wednesday night. This episode, of course, coming out Thursday morning. So we're recording this Wednesday afternoon. We have no idea what happens in that game, but the Cavs are not going to let a 5-game lead in their final 10 games go to waste. So they're going to be the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference, which, of course, means they have no idea who they're going to be playing in the first round of the playoffs. They will take on the 8 seed, which will be one of Atlanta, Orlando, Chicago, Miami. Of course, 4 terrifying teams. I hope you can sense my sarcasm. Is there a team in that group? And I do want to talk about all 4 of them. But to start, is there a team in that group that jumps off the page to you as like, well, that could be the one that maybe gives the Cavs a little bit of an issue?
I would say the 7 seed, Atlanta, just because they obviously have one of the best point guards in the NBA as far as being a setup guy and someone who can make big shots. We've seen it in the past. Obviously, series that he's been a part of, most notably what happened in New York all those years ago. It's hard to believe how long ago it was. But also, I'm thinking about the villain George Niang arc and Karis LeVert. And that's the thing that I'm thinking about most when it comes to that first round series potentially between the Cavs and the Hawks. So I don't think that happens because I think they win right away and they play the 2 seed, which is going to be Boston for sure. Right. So I think that that's probably out of the element. Out of those other teams, though, I don't think the Magic have the chops to keep up offensively with them, as we've talked about in the past here. But there's something about this new Chicago team, this backcourt of Kobe White and Josh Giddey, that's given me a little bit of tiny pause. Like, not in a sense of they are going to beat the Cavs if they were to face in the first round, but they could be kind of annoying, maybe more of a nuisance to them just because they have a little bit more firepower. Love Matas Buzelis. Think he's been having a really good season since he stepped up into that kind of, more primary role with those guys. So they've got a little bit more firepower, and I think they're a little bit more scrappy, I guess.
Scrappy is probably, I think it's weird because when you think of a scrappy team, you think of defense, and like that's not who the Chicago Bulls have been
right
at any version of this year's Chicago Bulls team, particularly lately. Like, they're winning because they've been a top 10 offense in the month of March, and they're 8-2 in their last 10 games as we sit here and record this. And I do think that you're right with Atlanta. Now, that said, like, people are going to look at, the Hawks went 2-1 against the Cavs this year, but the team that beat the Cavs twice, that wore Atlanta Hawks uniforms, I think is very different than the team right now because, 1, DeAndre Hunter was part of that, and 2, Jalen Johnson was a big part of those, and obviously he's been ruled out for the year in Atlanta with that shoulder surgery. So I think you're right about the George Niang, Karis LeVert, like, villain arc, and I think it's been awesome the way that George has played in Atlanta. He's certainly gotten a much bigger opportunity with the Hawks than he was getting with the Cavs. I think that you're right because Trae Young is capable of making things dangerous a little bit, but in the other aspect of this, one of the things that I look at here, because none of these 4 teams, despite how good Miami looked against Golden State and Jimmy Butler's return to Miami on Tuesday night. I don't think any of these 4 teams are capable of beating the Cavs, right? Like, I think we're probably in agreement there. If the Cavs are playing even 60% of their best basketball, they're winning this series. The thing that I look at is the physicality aspect of it, because, and we, I think, learned this when LeBron was here in the second go round. Getting through the first and even second round as quick as you possibly can so that you are the fresher team in the later rounds of the postseason is a really important thing. And as we know from watching a lot of playoff basketball, the playoffs become a little bit more physical than the regular season. And that is something that I think the Orlando Magic in this group are probably the most physical team. Now, that said, I think that Orlando can't score, and that leads to the Cavs matching up with them really well. I just don't think that Orlando can defend well enough against the Cavs, especially from beyond the three-point arc, despite the fact the Cavs were 10 of 40 against the Magic the last time these two teams met. I think that had much more to do with the Cavs just missing shots than anything else. But I kind of look at this as, okay, what team is going to be the least physical against the Cavs in a postseason series? And the answer to that might actually be Chicago.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that because, I mean, you look at the example of what Orlando did to him last year and gave him all sorts of headaches. Now, they don't have Mo Wagner around because he's obviously out for the season, so that's a big part of one of the more physical players that they faced in that series. So I think that that's definitely a factor. But you look at Paolo, the way that Paolo plays and the way that Franz Wagner plays, I agree with you wholeheartedly there. That they are bruiser types who will absolutely run through you to get to the basket and to get to the free throw line. And that's pretty much their main offense because they don't have shooters. So every team has their own strengths, and that's Orlando's, is getting to the free throw line and turning you over and trying to make you pay in transition because the outside shot is not where they're going to make their money. Right. Now you look at the other teams. I agree with you too, and the fact that Atlanta's physicality, a lot of that came from the Jalen Johnsons of the world and the DeAndre Hunters for sure. I don't know if, Clint Capella plays that brand of basketball in the paint. Like, I don't think that he's the same as, some other centers that might be in the postseason. So, yeah, if you look at it from that lens, I would agree with you. Chicago, more finesse, more up-tempo, not really going to grind you down type of ball. But, Miami's always physical. So you want to look at that. Like, no matter who is on their team, they're always going to push you around. They're always going to set hard screens, and they're always going to put a body on you for rebounds. So you always have to respect that aspect about them. I think that Andrew Wiggins has been playing excellent for him, too, over the last week or so, and he's kind of brought that element to them. Along with, obviously, Bam Adebayo doing his thing in the paint and Khalil Ware doing awesome things as a rookie.
He's been awesome. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. So in a physicality standpoint, I would say Orlando, Miami, and then Atlanta, Chicago, probably in that order.
So it's really interesting, I think, the variance we could see because, and I'm talking more so like between the 4 teams. So Atlanta and Chicago are 2 of the top 3 teams in pace as of right now, and the Cavs are the 10th fastest paced team in the NBA. Like, they're, I guess, middle of the pack, upper third, whatever. Like, they're right on that border. So Chicago is 3, Atlanta is 2, and then on the complete other end of the spectrum, Orlando is 29th and Miami is 28th. So you could get a team, and we don't know exactly how much those teams are going to slow down in the postseason because, as we know from watching a lot of postseason basketball, the game is different. It slows down a little bit. The faster-paced teams are still going to be the faster-paced teams in comparison to others, but they're not going to necessarily be as fast of paced teams as they were in the regular season. So that is something interesting to think about. And then the other question that I keep asking, I think this question will be a little bit more pertinent even in the next segment when we talk about potential second round opponents. But in this play-in group, 2-part question. Who is, 1, the best player the Cavs could see? And 2, who is the worst individual matchup that the Cavs could see from one of those 4 teams?
Ooh, I would say best player out of those 4 teams would have to either be Trae Young or Paolo Banchero. I think that is where I'm looking. And then the second question, can you repeat that? Sorry. Of
the top players, and it doesn't have to qualify for one of the 2 you just said, but which one matches up the best against the Cavs? Like, which one do you think is best formulated to give Cleveland issues?
Paolo.
Yeah, that's kind of where I get to too.
I'm thinking of that too, just because of last year's series, and you know that he wears that on his sleeve. And look, I mean, the way that they responded against the Cavs in Cleveland after they got absolute boat raced on national television in their own stadium tells me a lot about their hunger and the way that they're able to respond and how they're equipped to deal with, you know, kind of emotional swings. And I think that even if they're not equipped offensively the way that most teams are in the league, that tells me they have it up here. And I think that also just kind of the trash talk that Paolo brings to the table and Franz the same thing. I think that kind of motivates them and pushes them forward. So that's going to be, I think, the toughest test. And it's not in the terms of the wins and losses. It's in terms of wearing you down, in terms of really getting into you and making you work for stuff. And I feel like they did their job right if they made the Cavs work on the way the second round, if that happens.
Right. I think that's true. I also think that as we look at this group of 4 teams, I'm not sure that there's a team capable of taking the Cavs to 6 games. Like, does Miami get a win because they have a day where the Cavs just can't figure out their zone defense? Maybe. Does Orlando get a win because the Cavs go cold shooting from beyond the arc in one of those games? Maybe. Can Atlanta get a win if Trae Young goes berserk? Sure. Can Chicago get a win if they hit 25 threes? Absolutely. But I just don't think that any of those teams have something that really would push the Cavs to any real sort of postseason adversity. The second round, however, might be a little bit of a different story. We're going to talk about the 3 teams the Cavs could see in the second round of the playoffs next, right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. FanDuel is, of course, America's #1 sportsbook. And right now, March Madness is here. FanDuel giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before, because right now, new FanDuel customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. All you got to do, win that first $5 bet. Get one pick right. First $5 bet, $200 in bonus bets would be yours. It's 200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories, and even who might be cutting down the nets at the end of it all. Maybe you have your eye on a couple of underdogs. There's this 10 seed playing this weekend. Maybe that's where you think the money is to be made. Well, FanDuel makes it easy to back them with spreads, totals, game props, and so much more. And tournament games happening now the next few nights. That means there's always something exciting to bet on. And the FanDuel app is simple to use. When you win, you get paid instantly. There's no waiting around. So what you need to do is visit FanDuel.com. That is FanDuel.com, or download the FanDuel app, create an account, and if you win that first $5 bet, you get $200 in bonus bets. So get in on the college hoops action all tournament long, plus NBA action still going on. Regular season coming to a close here soon, but there's still stuff going on every single night. Get in on that action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. Like I said earlier, you can find the show anywhere you get podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed as well. And make sure you are also subscribed to the Locked On Cavs daily newsletter, your one stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. You can sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That is LockedOnDaily.com. Spencer, there was some news that came out before the Cavs played the Blazers on Tuesday night, and everything runs together because we've been up at hours I don't wish to be up for, because this West Coast swing has been brutal. I cannot wait for the Cavs to play at home tonight so I can, 1, watch an NBA game in person again, and 2, not be up until 4:30 in the morning podcasting and writing about it. You know, I'm sure you feel very similar sentiments, but that news was that Damian Lillard of the Milwaukee Bucks dealing with a blood clot in his calf. And Dame has already missed a couple of games. He's now going to be out indefinitely. We don't know when he's going to return. The Bucks did not rule him out for the rest of the year, which I think is an important thing to denote here. But I do think that this is something that could change potentially what things look like for the Cavs in the second round here.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate hearing about Dame. I mean, you think about the Wemby announcement even a few weeks ago, right, about being out for the season and out indefinitely. And you hope that it's not as bad of a case as that for Dame, especially just because he's one of the most dynamic and fun players to watch in the league, but also the fact that the Bucks have been playing some pretty decent ball over the last month or so, and that's obviously something that slows that down. It's going to put a lot of pressure on Giannis to really step up even more so. Kyle Kuzma, same thing. They're going to need a lot more from those guys and figuring out a way to create. I'm sure that Kevin Porter Jr. is going to have a very much so increased role as a playmaker for them too. So that sucks to hear about for Dame, and I send him nothing but the best and hope that he's okay. But in terms of the Cavs' second round matchup, it's one of those things where now you can look at potentially three teams, as you mentioned in the open of this segment here, that you can see Indiana, Milwaukee, or Detroit now. And that could make for another storyline if you look in the second round.
Oh, yeah.
Especially in Detroit, if they're able to climb up there and win a first-round series. And now, what a perfect, path that could be. You could play Atlanta, you could see George and Karras, and then the second round you could potentially see JB, and that they have some really hard feelings towards another as far as organization and coach goes, versus organization and players, of course. So that could be really fun to see. I love that dynamic exists still, and it's not as big of a deal, I feel like, to them, but from the outside, it's obviously a storyline that we could pay attention to. Indiana, that's a team that I don't think anyone wants to see right now because, well, one, you don't know what you're going to get with them. If they defend, they're probably going to win. And if they don't, you have a good chance of beating them. Tyrese has been playing out of his mind. I think, Pascal Siakam's been really solid all year. Miles Turner doesn't get enough credit. And then, Andrew Nembhard, I think, is one of the mainstays of this team that doesn't get enough love. And then you obviously have Ben Mathurin off the bench. So,
right.
Very tough team. And then we could go through the list too with Milwaukee, but yeah, not easy by any means in a second round opponent, no matter who they get.
No, not an easy thing at all. I do think that Indiana is a much different team in Indianapolis than they are on the road. I think nothing embodies that more than Tyrese Halliburton. Like, he looks like an all NBA caliber player inside Gainbridge Fieldhouse or whatever that building's called these days. And then on the road, he's just much different. And of course, the Cavs, it should be mentioned, against that group of three teams, they're 8-1 so far in the year. The one loss did come to the Pacers. They still play, obviously, Detroit tomorrow in their final matchup. They're 3-0 against the Pistons. They have 2 games against the Pacers the last week of the regular season. And if Indy is in the 4 slot or the 5 slot, which I think is probably fair to expect, considering they have a 2-game lead over both Detroit and Milwaukee as we record this right now. Indy does play tonight. Milwaukee also plays tonight. Obviously, Dame won't play. Giannis Antetokounmpo, I believe, has been ruled out for that game as well, against Phoenix. So we'll see what that looks like. But it'll be interesting how the Cavs handle those 2 games at the end of the regular season. And I think the matchups in this series are really interesting. Obviously, we know JB Bickerstaff's track record as a postseason coach, and it's not glowing, I think, is probably a nice way to say it, where in his postseason coaching career, he has 1 road playoff victory, and it's difficult for me to see. I don't think, like, can I see a world where they beat the Pacers in the first round? Sure. Like, Cade Cunningham is that good. I don't think there's a world where they could beat the Cavs in the second round. I just don't think that they have enough on either end of the floor. But the thing that I keep coming back to is what this Dame injury does. And I think the Milwaukee Bucks match up really poorly with the Cavs. And there's a reason why the Cavs went 4-0. And yes, you can say that Giannis missed a game and Dame missed a game. But the Cavs did beat the Bucks twice when Milwaukee was at full strength. And, in that last game in Milwaukee, it felt like the Cavs got whatever they wanted offensively. They didn't necessarily hit a ton of wide open shots, but they created a lot of them. That said, Giannis would be the best player in that series. And he's the only guy in this round that I look at and say, okay, the other team, the Cavs opponent, would have the best player in this series. And I think Milwaukee moving to 6 is interesting because the Cavs match up really well against them, but also Giannis is the best player. Like, I don't know whether or not that's a team the Cavs should want to face or avoid.
You never want to face someone who's won a title. Like I think that's also a part of this too. He's got the championship experience. He's been to the mountaintop, and he's hungry to get there again. That's the other thing too about Giannis. He's been amazing this year. I mean, the mid post turnaround fadeaway that he's developed is a thing of beauty, and that's in addition to him being as ferocious as he is and as unrelenting as he is when he goes to the rim. And you bring up the physicality part of the first part of this conversation. That's the thing that immediately comes into my head, and that I think is maybe not a matchup problem, but it's definitely something that would give you headaches and would probably be something to be concerned about in a series against that type of player. So I agree with you there. Not a whole lot I'm disagreeing with you on, by the way.
Yeah, because I'm right. And it's good to feel right about a lot of stuff. I'm not paying you to agree with me, which is great. I feel validated in my takes for once.
I'm sure you do. But listen, I mean, Indiana, Detroit, that could be, I know you just talked about JV's track record and his kind of history as a playoff coach, but that Detroit Indy series could be a bloodbath.
And those are two teams that don't like each other.
That's exactly what I mean. They do not like each other. Isaiah Stewart, something's going to happen there. Something's going to happen between,
yes, it will.
James Johnson on the bench, even though he doesn't play, that he's going to get into someone's face if there's any kind of scuffle. I need that series. I need it and it's in my veins. Just because I love that. That's that old school type of feel to a postseason series that I feel like the game can definitely use. But I feel like in terms of a second round matchup, the Cavs would want the Pistons out of those three teams.
Right.
Even though I will say, like, Cade Cunningham could take that step too in the playoffs.
Sure,
he absolutely could.
I just don't think that they have enough to where, because I think that no matter who the Cavs face in the second round, like I think the 4-5 matchup, whether it is Indy Detroit or Indy Milwaukee, and I am penciling Indy into that 4 seed. I think that no matter what that matchup is, I think that's going to be a longer series. Like I think that will be a 6 or 7 game series. Mm-hmm. And we just got done talking about the Cavs in the first round and what that could look like. I think that's a 4 or 5 game series. And I think that is something that's going to make a really big difference, that the Cavs, 1, will have a week off before the first round series. And then 2, could have another week off before the second round series against whoever wins a potential 4-5 bloodbath. And I think that is the thing that doesn't necessarily push the Cavs over the top, because the Cavs are a much better team than any of these teams. Like they are 15 and a half games clear of the Pacers right now in the standings. So that is something to think about, but I don't know that Cade Cunningham could do it for 2 rounds. And I don't know that the Pistons have enough around him to sort of ease it for him and make it easier. I think that if the Pistons win a first round series, like that is an incredible accomplishment for a group that won 14 games last year. And 100%. That is certainly something that will serve to maybe be Cade's like welcome to stardom moment, even if that welcome to stardom moment mostly occurs on NBA TV, which that series would. But I think it's the Pistons are the team that the Cavs should want to see the most. And I think the Pacers are the team they might want to see the least, just because of how good and Indy has at times given them trouble this year.
And the Pacers have TJ McConnell, the ultimate try hard, the guy that's in the backcourt picking it up full the entire time he's in the game. You don't like to see those type of players in the postseason. And we saw that too. We saw that last year. I mean, even the years before, like he has always been a pest. And any team that has those on there too.
A guy like that. I'm struggling to think of his name. I think he was Australian.
Yeah, just maybe. But I feel like TJ had the 10 to 12 foot J though. I think I don't know if Delly had the floater, but let's see. But anyways, it's those type of players that really grind your gears. And you have, like you said, Tyrese Halliburton, who's been playmaking with the best of them. He obviously is launching threes, and Miles Turner doesn't get really his due, I think, as far as being a longtime pro in this industry, and he's been doing a really good job of just being rock solid throughout his career. And then Pascal's been to the mountaintop too. Pascal has a championship, so it's a good roster. They have a good team.
Yes, they absolutely do have a good team. It would be certainly, I think, the most interesting series would be against Indy or against Milwaukee. But the Cavs do have 10 regular season games left. What do we need to see in those 10 games? We're going to talk about that next. No, we're not going to talk conference finals. That's going to be Boston. We'll save that for a later day. We're going to talk about what we need to see from the Cavs before the postseason starts right here on Locked on Cavs. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. If you're watching the show on YouTube, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button for me, click subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. Spencer, the Cavs have 10 regular season games left. Of course, as we record this, they've won 2 straight. They beat, I don't know if you want to call Utah an NBA team. They're really bad. They don't play NBA basketball right now. And if you saw Will Hardy, I don't know if you saw what he had to say after they played Memphis on Tuesday night, but I think there's a lot of frustration in Utah right now. And then I thought the Tuesday night win over Portland was actually a really nice win for the Cavs. I thought Darius Garland had his best game since the All-Star break. I know it wasn't his highest point total, but I thought that was the most control of a basketball game that he's been in since before the All-Star break. And I think that's a big deal. But for me, I need to see Darius and Donovan have good games together because it's been a little while since we've seen that.
Yeah, I think that Donovan is going through a time right now where he just can't make a shot, and that might be affecting other things. It wasn't affecting his playmaking. He's been doing a really good job of getting into the middle and spraying out. He's been doing a terrific job at that. Maybe defensively there's a little bit more lax. Maybe he's not getting on the glass as much. I feel like this, and I think I read somewhere that this is one of his worst slumps since his rookie year, which makes it really weird. March is also a really weird time too, NBA-wise. So I feel like doing this now versus doing it in a month is really the best thing that could happen, because you don't want to be in this mode when you're going into a first round. Like, you still have a little bit of time to course correct. And Donovan has given us no reason otherwise to think that he won't. I feel like he is the leader of this team. He has taken a step to the side so that Evan Mobley and Darius Garland can be able to grow. He's been a great vocal leader this year. He has gotten to his spots. He's taken more threes. He's done what the teams has asked him to do. He just has not been converting on a lot of these shots, and frankly, they have not been anywhere close when you look at his jumpers. It's not like they're even just short or long. They're just not even in the area of the cylinder. So figuring that part out again, and I think that he took a step in the right direction against Utah by attacking and getting to the free throw line.
Yes.
Seeing it go through the net a little bit might be able to get it going forward. I don't think it's anything to do with physical. I don't think it's anything to do with that groin. I think it's all up here right now, but he has the mental capacity to do it, and I think that he's shown that to us in the past too.
So I can't sit here and say it has nothing to do with the groin. Like, I think that's probably part of this. I don't know if he necessarily feels as consistently explosive as he is when he's at his peak. But during the month of March, Donovan's averaging 20 points a game, just a shade over, like 20.3, on 18 attempts a game. So he's not been very efficient. He's shooting 33% from the field, 16.7% from three. And the biggest drop off too, and I think this is one of the most interesting things, and I wrote about this on my Substack, The Inside Shot, the other day, is how the Cavs are shooting wide open threes. Like, they've actually been creating more wide open threes per game during this month than they had been the rest of the season. It's very slightly more, but Garland is making 31, and this is before the Portland game. He was 1 of 3 on threes, so I can't imagine this went up very much. Garland is shooting 31.5% on wide open threes, which is down from like 45% for the season. Donovan Mitchell is shooting 13.3% on wide open threes. Before March, he was shooting 52% on wide open threes. Like, that is where the drop-off has been. That is the one thing that when I see that get back, I'll be like, okay, the Cavs are fine, Donovan's fine. And I expect that to be the case. Like, I think rest is what he needs, but I think that's been a big part of their struggles.
Is that in the context of pull-ups, or is that in the context of catch shoot? I'm
Just
guessing more
all of them. I mean,
to be honest.
Those guys tend to be more pull-up oriented.
Yes,
I don't have the exact numbers for that, and it gets a little, just like pull-up wide open threes can be a little difficult to cross-reference, but those guys take more pull-up threes than they do catch and shoot threes because they're not Sam Merrill. Like, they're not DeAndre Hunter. Like, those guys will take more catch and shoot threes because Donovan and Darius just have the basketball in their hands so much more frequently.
Agreed. Yes. And the majority of these threes too, like, when's the last time we saw a Donovan on the left wing do a dribble crossover between the legs, step back to the left and shoot? Because those are the ones that, when he's on, he's on. I feel like that's his favorite spot, is the left wing, and doing that kind of step back or step to the side and shoot. I feel like I haven't seen any of those. I think a lot of these are in the context of the offense, but also him trying to get right. And it's almost turned into, as I said earlier, kind of an overcorrection. And I feel like if he goes inside of the paint, gets to the line, make sure you see it go through the net, that's going to come back to him naturally. He's also tried to get his floater going, and I know that a lot of those have gone in and out too. When you look at some of these shots, a lot of them have gone like kind of rolling in and out of the rim if you watch. And it's kind of weird in that sense, but when it rains, it pours, and that's just how the post All-Star break has gone for Donovan. I agree with you too that it's not that he's impervious because of the groin, but I just don't think it's as affected as much as it is just him not having it right now. And I think the fatigue settles in too for a lot of guys, and it sounds like an excuse, but I mean, DG has just started to find it again, and he went through a rough patch. So Donovan's just a little bit more extended. Right.
Donovan is 7 of 55 in his last 7 games from beyond the arc. Like, for a guy that is as good as he is, that is an unfathomably low percentage. And that's just not something that I would anticipate keeping up. Like, he's going to figure it out. But I do think that's sort of the one thing that, I would like to see from the Cavs to feel a little bit more confident in them. Again, this is not a first round thing. This is not a second round thing. This is a championship aspiration thing. But seeing those guys, and we know that, they coexist really well. They fit really well, but they've not both played well at the same time in a little bit of a while. And I think that's something that just could be worth being concerned over.
Yeah, and you have Ty Jerome, hopefully, to kind of stem that tide too. If one of the two isn't playing well of that backcourt, you have that guy to lean on. And obviously what he did in Portland, and really what he's been doing all season, is
both Portland games,
getting downhill and getting to that floater, contorting his bodies in ways that I've not seen an NBA player do, setting up teammates in the pocket, setting them up on the outside, really controlling the pace of the game. So it's really important to have that guy in there too, because he's just kind of all right, if it's not working with these two and only one of them's got it going or neither of them has it going, then we've got Ty Jerome. Then we've got DeAndre Hunter. And then in some cases, Evan Mobley, you be the guy that initiates, and then we'll figure it out from there. So that's why it's good to have options. That's why it's good to be able to play in different facets and different styles, because that's what's required in the postseason. Can I give you one thing that I want to see before the end of the year?
I would enjoy if you did that.
Okay. I think that they've got to do a better job of securing defensive rebounds right now. It has been really tough when bigger guys, and I know that people love to go back to the Knicks series and stuff like that, but my counter argument is every team has flaws. The Cavs' flaw is that they don't have a guy to body up to an Ivica Zubac or a Walker Kessler or as we saw last night, Donovan Clingan. Those are the guys that give them problems, that tend to give them problems. You got to get either a body or two on them, make sure you're boxing out. But when you get defensive stops, you have to come up with the ball. And if you look at the Portland game, Cavs are lucky they made their shots, because they had 12 fewer shots than Portland did, I think.
Right. And to give Portland credit too, like, that's kind of how their team is built. Like, they're third in the NBA in offensive rebounding rate. Like, they rebound 36% of their misses, and they had a really good night. And I thought that for the first 3 quarters of that game, Jared Allen was not very good, but I do think you're spot on. So in the month of March, the Cavs are 19th in defensive rebounding rate. They are overall 22nd in rebounding rate as we record this on Wednesday afternoon. So that is something that I do think needs to be better. And I don't think that's, we think about rebounding, we think about, the big guys, right? Like, this is a Jared Allen problem. It's an Evan Mobley problem. No, this is a team thing. Like, part of the reason why the Cavs have not been a great rebounding team in this iteration of them is not because of Evan and Jared. It's because they've been a little small on the wing, like Isaac Okoro, not a great wing rebounder. Obviously, Darius and Donovan, not necessarily great rebounders. Like, that, I think, is where the issue is. It needs to be more of a team-focused thing than just pinning it on Evan and Jarrett.
I agree on that too. And if you look at the context of a lot of this, Jarrett's out there on an island a lot. They switch a ton with Jarrett out on the top of the key. Evan did an amazing job in Portland of being a rim protector the other night, but Other teams are pulling him out of the paint and trying to get him one-on-one in the perimeter. I don't know if that's a great strategy. I also don't know if it's a great strategy.
So
to
let me talk about this a little bit. And I talked about this on my podcast yesterday. But so the way I view that is teams are not trying to hunt Evan. They're trying to get Evan away from what he does best defensively, which is play that roamer spot where he can be a free safety, where he can disrupt things in so many different ways. Where is he's a good perimeter defender. That's not the thing he does best. Like, he's good at everything defensively. So they're asking him to not do the thing he does best. Like, I think that's a good offensive strategy. And it doesn't say anything about Evan being bad at that. I think it says how good he is at the other stuff.
Yeah. Elite help defender. That's really, like you said, playing free safety, being on that baseline and waiting for someone to attack Jarrett so that he could come out of nowhere and pin the ball against the glass. Like, that's what Evan does best for sure. But he is definitely capable as a perimeter defender. But I think that part of his game is still, can grow. And I think that he can be caught sometimes. I think James Harden got him good in LA last week. That's
going to happen. That's going to happen.
That'll happen on the outside for sure. But on the rebounding element, I feel like, a lot of rebounds in the modern NBA are long because there's a lot of threes going up. And that's on the guards and the wings to help them out too. And as you said, I feel like Max Strus does a good job of that. Like, he is a ball hawk. And, I feel like DeAndre Hunter could be better at that. You know who's good at defensive rebounding? Dean Wade. Dean Wade is outstanding at defensive rebounding. Yes. So, it's all matchup dependent, who your personnel is. And that's a lot of this too. I think with the defense in the month of March is know your personnel. Like, you got burned by Matisse Thybulle the other night, 5 of 6 from 3. I don't think he's done that in his career.
No,
I think you live. I think you live with that shot. I think you live.
Well, and Donovan Clingan's a 27% shooter. He made a couple threes.
Right, exactly. KYP, know your personnel. Like, if that's what you're giving up, that's what you're giving up. Because in basketball, you have to give up something. You're not going to hold a team to 0 points. So it's definitely a game you play, but the rebounding is the one thing that I think they can control a little better. Even if, like you said, Clingan's a big dude. That's going to happen, and they have a high offensive rebounding rate for a reason. But they got to do a better job of at least making it more difficult on them, I think.
Right, and the last thing I would say on this to close this discussion too is the Cavs play a lot of zone, and the most difficult part of the zone they play is grabbing the rebound at the end of getting a stop. And that's something that they've talked about openly. And I do think that that's some of the issues, not all of it, and they need to be better, but some of the issue just comes from the fact that maybe Jarrett Allen is not in the best defensive rebounding positioning because of where he's being asked to be on the floor in the zone. And I think that times, against in that Clippers game, you saw Max Strus being the one having to box out Zubats.
Yep.
And that's not a fair ask of Max. And when Zubats gets a rebound over him, can you really be upset with Max Strus because that happened? I think that's a wild thing to do. I just don't think that's a fair thing.
100%. And I mean, this is why the Cavs went out and got the guys that they did. They went out and got DeAndre Hunter to get a little bit more size because he's down there a lot when Jarrett switches out up, or if Evan's on, a wing or a guard, because DeAndre's got the strength to kind of at least push around a little bit more, and he's obviously got the 7'2" wingspan. Javonte Green, who got some minutes against Portland, is also someone who's strong and who's able to kind of push on to guys if they need be. So it's definitely more complicated than it appears, but that doesn't change the fact that they have to be better on the defensive glass.
Yes, you are absolutely correct. We will see what that looks like over the final 10 games of the regular season and into the postseason. But Spencer, thanks so much for doing this, man. You can check out Spencer's stuff over at Cleveland Cavaliers on SIRG.org and a bunch of other places where he does stuff as well. Spencer, very much appreciate the time, man.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for making Locked on Cavs your first listen today and every day. Like I said earlier, you can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked on Cavs. And if you're watching on YouTube, do me a favor. Hit that thumbs up button for me as we get out of here. Click subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked on Cavs content. I'll be back tomorrow talking about the Cavs taking on the Spurs.